Hi, everybody. Dacob here. Welcome back to another podcast. What's the topic today? You know what? There is no real topic except I just want to talk about, or more than talk, just vent. Like, what is going on with this world? I have the feeling, first of all, living in isolation. Yes, you do tend to go cuckoo with time, and in a way, I don't know. You just things begin to irritate you that usually would not irritate you. So that's one thing. I'm noticing some comments on social media are more vicious than they used to be. And I think I'm like trying to reflect that on me. And I think, well, I'm feeling more aggressive myself. So I guess everybody's becoming more and more tense. Like, just how far can you wind it up and how far can it get wound up, this whole mechanism, until it bursts? Because this can't go on forever. And everybody's dealing with it in the way that they best know how. I don't know what this means for many people. I'm just sick and tired of this, not knowing anything really. I have the feeling the governments are misinforming us. I have the feeling there's very little truth out there, and I mean, nobody's really explaining even the situation between the frickin' coronavirus 2 and COVID-19. It's like saying HIV and AIDS. You get the HIV virus, you still don't got AIDS. HIV can trigger AIDS. You see what I mean? So COVID-19 is like the final stage of this coronavirus. So, but what does it mean? And you try to Google it, and you get the freaking same symptoms everywhere. It's just a list of symptoms. Yeah, if you have these symptoms, you might be. I was like, that's not what I'm asking you. What I want to know is, what does, once COVID-19 is triggered inside of the body, what does it exactly do to the body? Lay it out flat and low and straight. I do not want any sugarcoating. I want to know exactly how this thing attacks the lungs, attacks whatever other organs, attacks your tissue, attacks the white blood cells, maybe even the red blood, whatever it does. I want to know exactly step by step what COVID-19 does to kill you, because it's nauseating to, on social media, looking through whatever is out there, people posting. Facebook is terrible. It's a freaking minefield of misinformation and lies, and you don't even know anymore if some person that's reposting a reposted of a reposted of a reposted photo of some alleged nurse stating in a diary that's like almost 2 pages long how it is to work in a hospital. I'm like, well, first of all, I'm a bit skeptical of the fact that if you're a nurse that's working 18-hour shifts a day, you got the time to write a 2-page novel on the situation? I don't think so. I think there's a lot of misinformation going on there. People writing these terrible texts and pasting them together with photos that they find online. In some cases, of course, these diary writings are probably also true. I'm not saying that all of it is fake and false, but what I'm saying is it's so easy. It's so easy to fake facts today. And I'm so sick and tired of watching the news and hearing all the reports of, and it's not just in America, it's every government in every country with their stupid reports at the end of the day or at the morning of the day after telling how the situation is going. There's no answers. There's still no fundamental truths being told. And I know that, and it's so easy because everything is on social media, everything is trackable and traceable back to when it was first published. So people change opinions. Even the World Health Organization said one thing 2 months ago, now they're saying another thing. So if people want to attack the World Health Organization, they can easily say, look, here's a screenshot of what you said 2 months ago. It's the opposite of what you're saying now about how the virus spreads. So hence we deem you not a reputable source. I mean, if you're going to be that anal about it, then why aren't you that anal about the politicians who are even worse than the World Health Organization? I mean, they change their opinion on a minute-to-minute basis at times. They just blow in the direction the wind blows. I'm telling you, there's no truth out there. There's no clarity out there. And somebody, I have the feeling, is really profiting from this confusion to cause even more confusion and to cause even more stress and to create this mass hysteria, to lower the attention span that we have, to lower our concentration, to lower what human beings have, which is deemed a sense of understanding what is real, what is not real. And somebody's really profiting off of that. I am completely sure of this. And I hate the fact that behind this veneer of the pandemic, which I'm not saying is not happening, I'm totally aware of the fact that it's happening. But behind that veneer of the news of the pandemic happening, there are other forces at bay that are starting to move on, that have already been in motion a long time ago. But everything is happening as we all are shut down in our homes. Now, I know that in many countries, a lot of people don't even take it seriously, this whole all of the tips and in some cases orders of the government to stay at home. Some people just don't stay home. They just keep going out and they don't care. They don't care if they're going to have to pay money because the police catches them out and about in groups and this and that, or they might even get incarcerated, what have you. So you have the faction of the people that don't care. You have the faction of the people that do care, that do believe that it's really as serious as it is, and then they get really aggressive and angry with the people that do go out. And then they tell them, well, you're going to have dead people on your shoulders because you're going out, you're spreading out the virus by being so careless, so other people are going to lose their lives because of you. So there's this shaming and this finger pointing that adds to the entire equation of already being so frustrated at home, having lost jobs, having lost several gigs, thinking about whether or not there will be enough food the next week, thinking whether or not there will be water the next week or the next day even. And then on top of that, you add this frustration of this invisible killer is outside and is going to get you, so don't leave the house. But what is happening outside while most of us are not leaving the house? I do not know, to be quite frank with you guys, if my fear of the coronavirus is bigger or smaller than the fear of what is actually going on outside while we are all indoors thinking about saving our lives by not getting infected. I don't know. I don't want to be the one who's like, oh, conspiracy theory this, conspiracy theory that. I mean, I myself don't know what's going on either. So it's just a hunch. It's just a feeling I have. It's just this unpleasant unease, if you may. And I'm not the only one. Another thing I've noticed, there are some lawyers that have gathered and are, well, warning the governments. They might even press charges. I mean, how can you press charges against the governments? Because at this point, it's really difficult. But they're saying, well, you've taken human rights away overnight, and everybody has been complicit about that. You have restricted rights of movement. You have restricted the rights to even to purchase certain goods in a certain amount. You have restricted so many things, and freedom of movement also across borders has been restricted. Some countries are using this to their advantage, like what is happening in Poland and Hungary, where their upcoming elections are being completely manipulated, and people will not probably be allowed even to vote in the way that, according to, let's say, something that's supposed to be visible as a democratic European law is supposed to be considered and deemed the correct way to vote and freedom of vote. Democracies seem to be dying. And some people also in the law fields are warning about this. Now, in the beginning, I thought, well, I mean, this is a state of emergency, and once the pandemic is over, technically the state of emergency, the declaration of the state of emergency has to be stopped. No more emergency. All the rights return to the people as they were before. But will they? Will they? How quick? Because the governments were like that quick to take all the rights away. Are they going to be that quick to give them back again? Because we've seen, they've proven to us that it's possible to overnight take these decisions and vote for it or against it. So once all of this is over, will they be as quick to return to citizens all the rights that they had before? I'm not so sure about that. And the more I read lawyers' letters to governments, or also to courts, in which they warn about freedom being taken away from democracy, or democracy just being suffocated, and warning that nothing is being put into place to counter that motion once the pandemic is over. And the more I read about this, and the more I think to myself, there might not be a way back. So you see what I mean? You fall into this spiral of negative thoughts, and it just kind of, you keep on spiraling, and you don't know what's happening. And you start perhaps going a bit cuckoo because you are in isolation. So your mind is not really occupied with other thoughts that you would be occupying your mind with if you were, going to your job every day, meeting other people, having a social life. Just all of those encounters that kind of occupy your mind throughout the day, they're all gone now. Now you're dealing with yourself. And dealing with yourself is very scary. I'm fine with dealing with myself. I've done it many a time in my life because of also the type of preparation that I have had in my professional life. So I'm used to entering dark, deep tunnels and not even being afraid of it, or perhaps being a little bit afraid of it, but utilizing that fear as a positive rather than a negative, and not letting it get to me to a point where there's no more return. I go through that tunnel. I walk through that tunnel, and I find my light at the end of the tunnel. I always do. So I don't fear losing myself. It's a part of the process, right? But when you are confronted with yourself, and you got to deal with yourself already because you're in isolation, and a lot of us are in isolation alone, a lot of us are in isolation with other people. There's a variety there. But fundamentally, you're dealing with yourself in a very small environment, very closed environment. And so you're already kind of, all your own demons come up to the surface, and you got to start dealing with them. But you add on top of that the fact that you're not in isolation because you chose to be. You're in isolation because somebody's kind of making you. I mean, they're telling you, well, in some countries, you're still allowed to walk out and about. Sweden still, they're still all for the herd immunization of this pandemic. So I don't know how they're going to deal with that long term, and how that's going to turn out for them. But so some countries, you're totally free to do whatever you want. In some countries, you're not. In Italy, in many parts, I think still, as I'm filming now, as I'm recording now, it's total lockdown. You still, you end up if you're infected, and you're proven infected because you were tested positive, but you're feeling okay, and you still go out to buy something, and the cops catch you, and I don't know how they can find, if they test you, if they can find out again that you're infected, you might end up in prison. I don't know how they're going to put you in prison if you're infected. They're probably going to wait until you're healthy again, and then they're going to lock you up. But you know what I mean? So in many countries, yes, you are forced to stay indoors. In some, you're not. But what I'm trying to say is, you're already in isolation, if you are in isolation, and you're already dealing with yourself. And on top of that, you have to deal with the external factors, which are, you are in isolation because there's a pandemic, so some of you lost your jobs. You are in isolation because of pandemic, and you're not allowed to leave because the government is not letting you leave the house. So there's these other external factors, and let's not forget the virus itself. So there's this fear of this invisible enemy that's outside of the four walls of your house. And those three factors, those potential three factors, added to your own demons that you're battling with and dealing with internally. No, that's a cocktail for disaster. Now, I ain't no psychiatrist, I ain't no psychologist, but it doesn't take a freaking genius to figure it out. It really don't. And you don't have to study medicine and then end up, doing psychiatry to figure it out, that this is a cocktail for disaster. And yes, this is also stuff that I've heard online and from both reputable and non-reputable sources, meaning on the news, psychologists or psychiatrists being interviewed saying that, well, what is also very dangerous about this pandemic is that some people that are at home, let's say in a group scenario where you're with your family, with your loved ones, with your girlfriend, with your boyfriend, whatever, that a lot of people are just going to have horrible, terrible fights. A lot of marriages are going to end. These people that are isolated and locked down in amongst four walls for an extended period of time, just abandoned to themselves. It's going to contribute to a lot of separation and a lot of fear and pain. And some news from Italy even state that, some people killed each other. It's usually guys killing girls. Typical. I mean, but Italy's a case in its own right. You're even allowed to buy certain acids in the supermarkets. And oh God, the south of Italy is a mess when these jealous idiot guys throw acid in the faces of their girlfriends just because they're jealous. I mean, this world is a mess. Honestly, like I'm at a point now thinking to myself, well, okay, coronavirus, we freaking deserve it. This is like what we have pushed ourselves to become. The level of decay, internal and external, and also moral decay of our society. It's dreadful. And it seems like, like, oh, okay, there's no way out because it just keeps on getting worse. And in terms of, coincidentally, many countries are dealing with really major elections this year. And then the pandemic had to hit this year on top of that. Just makes things even worse because, well, think about it, how this can be utilized. And it already, we're seeing it in Hungary, it's happening. And the European Union isn't doing much to, as of now, they're not really reacting in the way that they could with the power that they actually technically would have to block this manipulation of power. Worldwide, shit is going down. And trust you me, it's not just the coronavirus. It's way more. And it's deeper than that. And I don't know. I used to think, well, we have the power in our hands, so we have the power to change. But everybody is reacting in such a passive way. Nobody's everybody's numb. We've been numbed down. There's a great John Carpenter movie, They Live. It's called They Live, about aliens that have taken over. I mean, this is super conspiracy theory, but it's so funny that they use these rays, that mind controlling rays, so humans that are not aliens cannot see the aliens. So as long as these special rays or radio waves are used, they manipulate you into seeing aliens as if they were human. But then there's this pair of sunglasses that you can wear, and they interfere with those rays, so they block that charge of rays coming to you. So if you wear these sunglasses, you get to see who is the alien and who's not. And you get to see the mind manipulation that goes on from media, mostly, television, mostly, radio too. So, and in our society today, the internet. And when you wear these glasses, you get to see the truth behind every newspaper. And every newspaper and every television station and everything is just built up to brainwash you, right? So when you wear these glasses, you see, I don't know, maybe you're just watching a normal television show, but then when you put these glasses on, you see that actually what's happening in that moment is there's this text blinking that subconsciously is telling you to obey what they tell you, do what they tell you, obey what they tell you. And it goes on and on and on for years. And so there's this little tiny group of people who try to battle against these aliens. And of course, you can imagine the outcome. Now, is the situation this tragic and bad? Are there aliens out and about? I don't know, and I don't really care. I think the universe is big enough for other life forms to be there as well. So whatever. If we're going to be in any sort of way thinking on Darwin and Darwinistic evolution of the species and the strongest will prevail, well then, if an alien is stronger than the humans and it just comes and messes with us, it will. It's in the nature of things. The stronger eats the weaker. Unfortunately, we're doing it also to ourselves. The people that are in power, that have wiggled their way through to the top of the power chain, politicians that are supposed to be working for the people actually have turned everything around, and now the people are working for the politicians. And there is the brainwashing, the actual brainwashing of humans to humans, humans just manipulating other humans into believing that what is going on is the right thing. You know, the way that the governments are dealing with everything, with economy, with politics, that it's the right thing. Well, it's not the right thing. If it were the right thing, and trust you me, there are enough resources on this planet. There are enough resources for everybody to be happy, for everybody to have enough. And yet, it's us. We have decided to structure this society in a way that only 1% of the hyper rich get everything, and everybody else, it's like a pyramid. Everybody trickles down to poorer and poorer and poorer. And the only way that this sick society can work is if there are poor and there are rich. And it's terrible, but that doesn't mean that this society is okay. You can change it. You could structure and build something else. In order to do so, you got to take the power away of that 1% that's on top of that pyramid that is constantly manipulating the smaller folk. The smaller folk, which are the vast majority. And still, they're numb. They're passive. They just let it be done to them over and over and over again. There's a terrible, terrible comparison you can make with, unfortunately, with the Second World War and the Holocaust and the studies that have been made, you know, in the concentration camps. The prisoners in the concentration camps were way more, and they outnumber the Nazis. And yet, for the most, there were a very small amount of examples where the prisoners united and fought against the enemy, their captors. But most of the time it never happened because the captors were so clever into separating everybody, into believing in individuality. And this individuality, which the government is also implementing to brainwash us, is thinking, well, if you spy on others, and if you just believe that you alone are the one who might survive, then you're never going to unite with others. You're always going to separate yourself from the others, and you're always going to see the others as your potential enemy, when in fact, that's what the true enemy, that's what the captor wants you to believe. As long as they make you believe that, you will never unite. And as long as you don't unite, you won't be strong. And I'm telling you, there's only strength in numbers. We are only strong if we're together, if we're united. Other examples show us in shopping centers, I don't know, example, you win this car. The car, it's in the center of the shopping center. It's exposed. You can see it, and it's full of bubble gum. You know, those ball, round bubble gums, and it's full of them, the inside of the car. And like, if you guess the number of bubble gum in the car, you get to win the car. And of course, if there's, I don't know, there's billion of bubble gum in there. So what are the chances of you guessing? Very small. But every time they executed these tests, the more people you ask, without these people knowing from one another who said what number, the more people you ask about what they think how many bubblegums are in that car, and the closer you get per approximation of the average number, the closer you get to the true number, the exact number of bubblegum in that car. It's only when we unify do we get to the truth, to the core. Only then do we win. So, concentration camps, big issue. Even though the prisoners outnumber the captors, still over 95, 99% of the times there was no rebellion going down inside of the camps, because everybody was led to believe that they had to spy on each other, that they, you know, individualism. Save yourself. If you save yourself, you know, and the Nazis were clever. They even, I mean, terrible freaking monsters. But what they did was also gave, in terms of these, the buildings within the concentration camps, they would, you know, attribute to a prisoner, like, to be the head of that group, and then they would kind of give them some sort of privileges. But they would be poisoning them bit by bit. If they don't gas you immediately, then they would, like, put salt in your water. They would feed you the minimum amount to starve you slowly to death, and just to take away that little bit of humanity left in you, use you to work. And even the work that you did was not It was unnecessary. It was all built up to annihilate you, to kill you, to destroy you. And this is what ethnical cleansing is. This is what systematic, calculated elimination of a group of people is. Whether it be a social group, whether it be a gender group, whether it be a religious group, it doesn't even matter. They're all freaking human beings. Well, now, if we look at our state of things today, we could have not been more separated than we are right now. Everybody locked down in their own houses going cuckoo. I cannot believe that the entire world made the same decision, minus a couple of countries, okay? And this humongous isolation has got to lead to something. We have this here. I'm talking now. This is a podcast, social media. I don't know. 10 people are maybe going to hear this, maybe 20, if we're lucky. And there you have, but then that's the only chance we have, is to communicate through social media, because we're all isolated in our own way. We do have that strength to take back our rights. We do have the strength to unify. It's just that we have to stop being numb, numbed down, and sucked dry of our energies. Freedom of expression is also being taken away. Freedom of press, which is the most terrifying thing. Once the press loses freedom, and what's happening with Julian Assange at the moment, if they do extradite him, and if he is going to be sent out of England back to America, that's another terrible loss, because he's a journalist. Now, I know that people, so whoever is against him is claiming that no, he isn't. But then, he is. And these don't the people have the right to know what the governments are plotting behind their backs? Aren't the governments supposed to be working for the people? If so, then why don't the people have the right to know what the governments are doing? They should have the right to know. And somebody who showed the people what the governments are doing is now being punished for it. Where does that in a healthy world make sense? It only makes sense in a sick society, not in a healthy society. And this is the terrifying thing. This is the true virus of a few wanting and managing at their own plot, and the idea that they have to control the masses. That the few that manage to keep everybody else locked into place. It's modern day slavery, if you will. And even money itself, the fact that we give money power, it's a prison too. I think we're just waking up, locked down within four walls. Waking up is painful. You read it in so many books. Everybody who's been anything in terms of analytical about any sort of social structure and analyzing politics, any person that has a functioning brain comes to these conclusions that waking up to the truth is always painful. So maybe this depression, maybe this fear, maybe this having to deal with ourselves while we're on lockdown is a waking up process. And I do hope that once we wake up, we won't be any more prisoners of the system that we complicitly accepted to be imprisoned by and in. Some of you might be thinking, well, Dacob, so no money, how do you think, how should it work? There's so many books that have been written about the death of money, how money is coming to an end, how it's not. And the problem is that a couple of it's the 1% of the rich that want to maintain the power of money. The banks want to maintain the power of money because otherwise they lose all power. If all of us just stopped all of a sudden giving money any power and stopped using it, the banks would all collapse. It would be over. But we're complicit. We're complicit because, well, we're creatures of habit, and we also are social creatures. We do what we see others do. We repeat what we see others repeat. That's how we're built. It's in a way a hive mentality, a beehive mentality. That's what social beings are, and we are very social beings. It has also been proven that we live longer, healthier lives the more social we are, the more we meet with other people, because the synapses in the brain connect more, build up stronger links, and so you stay more alert and awake for a longer period of time the more social and sociable you are. It's the isolated people that die. Nazis, again, those idiots, they made these tests on babies. I mentioned this in other videos of mine. They took these babies, newborns, away from their mothers. You can imagine, probably also from concentration camps. And they made experiments on this group of newborns where they would have these nurses come in to feed them. And they would be kept warm, just warm enough so that they don't get sick from the cold. These babies were not in touch with each other, and the nurses that would feed them would not touch them, would not show them any compassion, nor any empathy or love or affection, and they would not talk to them. They would just technically execute the feeding, right? So, I don't know, twice a day or how many times a day baby is fed, and that's it. Diapers are changed, but that's it. There is no talking to it, no saying, oh, goo, 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 cute, cute, nothing. Each and every baby of this experiment died. Died from solitude, sorrow, heartbreak, whatever have you. And these are newborns, right? You think, well, for the grown-ups, maybe you had the love of your life and you lose the love of your life and you die of heartache, But no, you would think, well, a newborn doesn't know heartache yet. A newborn never had love before because, well, it had it in the stomach of its mom while it was developing from the fetus stage, maybe. But that's it. But once it's born, nothing. They all died. They were fed healthy food. They had, the rooms were warm. They had water, but no, they all died. And we die too. We wither away when we're alone and isolated. So either way you put it, whether it's a government that isolates you, whether it's some sort of oppressor that isolates you, whether it's a pandemic that isolates you, the more you're isolated and the more you're alone and the more sick you're going to get. So if it's not going to be the virus from outside that gets you, it's going to be your own self that gets you at a certain point. Yeah. Isn't this a chirpy topic? Well, definitely something to think about. And plan a course of action. Why not? Politicians, mathematicians, scientists, all of them plan courses of action. So why can't the citizen plan courses of action? Oh, right, because the citizens have lost the right to unify and to unite, and the pretense of the pandemic has taken away our rights to march and to protest. It's become illegal to protest in most countries. Online, it's still legal, but physically, it's not legal anymore. And there is a declared state of emergency. I repeat, when will this state of emergency be taken down? After the pandemic is over. Will the governments ever accept the fact that the pandemic is over? We don't know. But what we do know is that we did lose a bunch of our democratic rights, as is today. As of today, which is, as I'm recording, April 9th, 2020. I have the feeling we're getting closer and closer to that Mr. Ad Friendly that I did on my other Mr. Ad Friendly channel. we still have a chance to change the outcome of all of this. But we have to be very careful, because if we're not careful, we're going to lose everything. And I'm not talking about money and health. I'm talking about freedom. Thank you guys so much for listening and tuning in. Let me know what you think in the comment section under this podcast. And subscribe to my channel. If you want to watch a Chanel review, or if you want to watch an existential talk about the future. I do it all. There is no difference for me between the two. Freedom is a passion of mine. Beauty is a passion of mine. Health is a passion of mine. Fairness and correctness is a passion of mine. Passion is a passion of mine. Until next time, never forget to never give up on love. Love you all. See you soon. Take care. Bye.